Welcome, superstar. In this video, we're going to talk about how to stop people pleasing and how to start taking care of yourself. First, I'm going to dive into what happens when we people please and why it's such a big problem. I'm going to also talk about where it comes from and some of the root causes of it. And then I'll get into some practices that will support you in setting some boundaries, taking care of yourself, and how to stop living your life to please others. Let's go. First, let's talk a little bit about why people pleasing is such a problem and how it shows up. When we spend our lives trying to make everyone else happy, what usually happens is that we end up unhappy. What can happen is that we can find ourselves saying yes to things when we really mean no, because we might have a fear of disappointing others or being rejected or disliked. We might end up doing things that ultimately not only exhaust us, but even make us resentful. Over time, when we're trying to be all things to all people and make everybody happy, obviously it's never gonna work. We cannot absolutely make all the people happy all of the time. And so what ends up happening is that we not only feel exhausted, but we can end up feeling like a failure, which ultimately can lead to what I refer to as martyr syndrome, which is where we're constantly going down this downward spiral of giving, feeling unappreciated, feeling resentful, and then trying to give even more to be even more valuable. And it's a losing battle. It's never gonna work, so we need to put an end to it. Now here's the thing, and this might be a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. You might not wanna hear this, but I'm gonna say it anyway because that's how I roll. It's nobody's fault but your own. There is no one to blame but you. It can be really hard to hear that because it can feel like, well, people are taking advantage of me. And it's true, people might be taking advantage of you. But the truth is that you rolled out the welcome mat. You rolled out the carpet. And in fact, perhaps you are the carpet that people are walking all over. So this begs the question, why do we do this? If it's so unhealthy, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't actually make everyone happy, and it certainly doesn't make us happy, why do we try to please others? Why do we bend over backwards and sacrifice ourselves in the process? Well, as with most patterns like this, most maladaptive patterns, it usually goes back to childhood. Somewhere in the age of about 0 to 7 years old, we made up a story. We developed a belief and we developed a strategy to cope with that belief. And that belief, for example, might have been, well, I need to give and be perfect or say yes to everything in order to get love. If you grew up in a household with a difficult mother or a difficult father, you might have had the experience of trying to please that parent in order to get love back. As an adult, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's not very rational, but as a child, we are not rational. We live in this world and we try to do our best to survive in it. And so if we believe that we have to be a certain way in order to survive, AKA to get love, to get food, to get nurturing, then we will do more and more of those strategies. And on top of that, it's often a way that we're socialized as children. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, especially girls, to be nice, to give, to share, to sacrifice our own needs for those of others. And you might want to dive into your background and your past and excavate and see, well, what was my life like growing up? What did I believe about pleasing others? How did I come up with this belief? But that's a little bit outside the scope of this video. What I want to get into in this video is how to cut the pattern and how to change so that you're not people pleasing and instead you're taking care of yourself. Now, before I dive into the practices for getting past this pattern, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and feel free to comment below. Okay, so the first thing that you can do is to get super clear about what you want. One of the reasons that we end up saying yes to everything that other people want is because we don't even know our own heart and our own desires, and we're not even clear about what we're up to or trying to create in the world. I can tell you that it is a lot easier to say no and to create boundaries and standards when we're clear about what we're up to and when that matters to us and we have a really solid, devoted focus on whatever it is that we're up to for ourselves. So the first thing is to just know what you're up to. Now, that sounds easier than it really is for some people. For some of us, it took me several years to figure it out. But just being on the path of figuring it out and making the commitment to figuring it out was enough to start creating healthy boundaries around what other people wanted from me. And that leads me to the next thing. which is to practice receiving. One of the biggest things I've recognized in myself, and I recognize in the clients that I work with around this topic of boundaries and people pleasing, is that they have a hard time, or I should say we have a hard time receiving from others. If we have trouble receiving, we are going to try to deflect receiving by going into giving mode. Now, this is a subtle thing, and I'm going to see if I can describe it correctly, but I've observed this pattern in others, and I'm sure that I've exhibited it myself again and again. And that is somebody showing up in resentment and being like, well, I'm not getting my needs met and you're taking advantage of me and I need to put in some boundaries, and there's some kind of like anger, resentment, frustration, energy there. And what I've observed, because I've been working with this person, is that this person was actually creating that situation by always asking, how can I help? What can I do for you? And when other people would try to do for them, they'd be like, no, I don't need it. I'm okay. I can get my own door. I can carry my own groceries, right? And so one of the things that you can do is to practice receiving, even little things. Oh yes, thank you for opening the door. Oh sure, you can carry my groceries to the car. Oh yes, I could use help with this thing. Oh yeah, my hands are full. We have this sometimes tendency when we're people pleasers, we get into this martyr syndrome of pushing away gifts, of pushing away support, of pushing away help, and then feeling resentment that we're doing everything by ourselves and we don't have anybody helping or supporting us. So that second piece is to practice receiving all the time, like to get into from the very beginning of your day, like, all right, today I'm going to say yes to receiving. And what you'll notice is how often you push away support and how often you push away a gift. Or somebody will try to give you something and you'll say, oh, no, it's not necessary. Oh, no, I've got this, right? So practicing receiving. And the last thing I want you to practice is saying no. Now, I remember my coach at the time, Jody Johnson, she invited me. I was working on setting standards and boundaries, and she invited me to practice, to write down 100 different ways of saying no and to practice them in the mirror, which is just a crazy exercise. I thought she was nuts, but she made me do it, and I did it, and it was incredible. And I practiced saying no every which way. Gently, lovingly, kindly, not gently, not lovingly, like strong no's. My other mentor, Nani Leah Diamond, she allows us, or she invites us to practice 3 versions of no. A really strong, hard boundary, which she calls barbed wire no. A wooden fence no that's a little bit softer but still strong, and then a gentle rose petals no thank you no. So I invite you to find different ways to say no. No thank you. No, I'm not going to do that. I really wish I could, but I'm just not able to do that right now. So no. And just finding different ways for different situations, for different energies, for different people, for different relationships to be able to say no. And remembering that no is a complete sentence. And not only is it a complete sentence, but the challenge I have for you is, can you say no and hold love at the same time? It might seem obvious to some of you, but I know that for some of us, saying no feels like diminishing love, taking away love, that we have these two things all collapsed and enmeshed and entangled together, and they are separate. You can say no and hold love at the same time. So I invite you to practice that in the mirror as well. I hope this was helpful for you. If you're looking to work with a mentor, a coach, a guide, someone who can help you bring these practices into your business to help you grow your business in a way that's joyful, energy rich, and aligned, then let's connect. You can find me at superstaractivator.com/go and learn more about my programs and services and how I can help you.